The office was glowing with warm lights, glass walls reflecting the city skyline of downtown Chicago. Music played softly in the background as coworkers laughed, clinked glasses, and celebrated the end of a long quarter. I stepped inside wearing my best smile, adjusting my jacket, thinking this was just another harmless company party. People nodded at me, some smiled, others were already a little drunk, lost in their own conversations. I had no idea that within minutes, this room full of friendly faces would turn into an audience, and I would become the joke everyone remembered. Out of nowhere, he climbed onto the small stage near the bar and grabbed the microphone, tapping it twice like he owned the room. A confident grin spread across his face as he scanned the crowd, waiting for attention. Then he looked straight at me. He started with a funny story, twisting real moments from my life into exaggerated jokes. Personal details I had shared in private suddenly became entertainment. At first people laughed nervously, then louder, as he kept going. I felt every word hit like a slap while the spotlight stayed on me and the laughter grew, trapping me in that moment with nowhere to hide. My chest tightened as the laughter echoed around me, sounding louder than the music ever was. I could feel the heat rushing to my face, my ears burning as if the entire room was staring straight through me. I tried to laugh it off, but my smile felt stiff and fake, barely holding together. When I noticed phones being lifted, tiny red recording lights blinking, my stomach dropped. This wasn't just a moment anymore, it was becoming permanent. Every laugh felt heavier, every second slower, as I realized this humiliation wouldn't end when the party did. I pushed through the crowd and hurried down the hallway, the noise fading behind me with every step. Inside the bathroom, the door closed with a dull thud, finally giving me a moment to breathe. I gripped the sink, staring at my reflection, eyes glossy, jaw clenched, trying to hold myself together. My hands were shaking, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I splashed cold water on my face, whispering to myself not to cry, not here, not now, even as the weight of what had just happened pressed down on me. By the next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Notifications stacked up before I could even unlock the screen. Group chats, missed calls, messages from people I barely talked to. The video was everywhere. Short clips, edited captions, laughing emojis under my name. I scrolled in disbelief, feeling that same tightness in my chest return. At work, the atmosphere had changed. Conversations stopped when I walked by, whispers followed me down the hall, and I could feel the looks on my back. The humiliation from last night hadn't faded, it had multiplied, spreading faster than I could escape it. When I reached the office, he was already there, leaning back in his chair like nothing had happened. People gathered around his desk, laughing and replaying the moment as if it were some legendary joke. He soaked in the attention, smiling proudly, tossing out comments about how everyone needed to relax and learn to take a joke. Not once did he look my way with regret. Watching him enjoy the praise, completely untouched by the damage he caused, made something inside me go cold, and that's when I stopped feeling embarrassed and started feeling focused. As I sat at my desk, pretending to work, memories I had buried started resurfacing. Little moments that once felt harmless now made sense, the times he exaggerated his achievements, the credit he stole during meetings, the way he whispered half-truths to stay ahead. I remembered warnings from coworkers I brushed off, red flags I ignored because I didn't want trouble. Piece by piece, a clearer picture formed. This wasn't just a bad joke from a careless person. This was who he really was, and for the first time, I stopped blaming myself and started seeing him for exactly what he'd been hiding all along. I made a decision right there, not to confront him, not to explode, not to give him the reaction he wanted. Instead, I stayed quiet. I listened more than I spoke. I watched how he moved through the office, who he talked to, what he said when he thought no one important was listening. I started saving small things, emails that felt off, messages that didn't add up, moments when his stories changed. To everyone else, I was just doing my job. But inside, I was building patience, and with it, a plan. The workdays grew longer, and so did my nights. After hours, I sat alone with my laptop, scrolling through old emails, archived chats, and shared folders most people never bothered to check. I took screenshots, labeled dates, and organized everything carefully. Patterns began to emerge, missed credits, altered reports, conversations that suddenly made sense in hindsight. Every discovery steadied my hands and cleared my mind. This wasn't about anger anymore. It was about truth, and I was getting closer with every quiet, focused hour. One document stopped me cold. Buried in a shared drive was a report with his name stamped on it, but the data didn't match the timeline I remembered. I cross-checked it with emails and realized the work wasn't his at all. He'd taken full credit while quietly pushing responsibility onto someone else. Digging deeper, I found approval threads he'd altered and a compliance step he'd skipped entirely, something that could get the company in serious trouble. My pulse quickened, not from fear, but from clarity. This wasn't petty office drama anymore. This was something real, and it explained why he'd always acted so untouchable. I forced myself to slow down and double-check everything. Every file was opened again, every email read word for word, every timestamp compared. I didn't want assumptions or emotions ruining what I had found. I created backups, saved originals, and made notes explaining how each piece connected. When doubt crept in, I paused, stepped away, then returned with a clear head. By the time I finished, there was no confusion left, only solid proof. For the first time since that night, I felt steady, knowing the truth was finally on my side. I waited until everything was organized and impossible to misinterpret. Then, late one evening, I opened the company's ethics and compliance portal. My finger hovered over the keyboard as I chose the anonymous option, my heart beating faster with every click. I uploaded the files one by one, carefully describing what each document showed and why it mattered. When I finally pressed submit, there was no dramatic relief, just a quiet sense of release. I closed my laptop, knowing I had done exactly what was right, and whatever happened next would no longer be in my control. The changes were subtle at first. Managers started asking unexpected questions, meetings were rescheduled, and quiet conversations happened behind closed doors. He noticed it too, but brushed it off with jokes, acting like it was all routine. I watched him laugh in the break room, confident and careless, unaware that eyes were now on him from every direction. The tension in the office thickened, and while he played it cool, I could sense the ground slowly shifting beneath his feet. 2 weeks later, a sudden calendar invite popped up, mandatory attendance, no explanation. The entire department gathered in the main conference room, the usual chatter replaced by uneasy silence. I noticed senior leadership seated at the front, their expressions serious, folders stacked neatly on the table. He walked in late, still relaxed, giving a casual wave like this was just another update meeting. But something felt different. The air was heavy, charged with anticipation, and everyone could tell this wasn't going to be business as usual. The door opened again, and this time HR stepped in, followed by a compliance officer I had only ever seen in emails. Chairs shifted, backs straightened, and a few people exchanged nervous looks. The joking mood he usually carried disappeared for just a second before he masked it with a confident smile. HR didn't smile back. They took their seats slowly, placed documents on the table, and announced that the meeting would be brief but serious. In that moment, the room went completely still, and for the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker across his face. The compliance officer began reading from the report, voice calm but firm, outlining the findings one by one. Each sentence landed heavier than the last: unauthorized changes, misrepresented work, violations that could no longer be brushed aside. The room was silent except for the sound of pages turning. I glanced around and saw faces frozen in shock, eyes widening as the truth unfolded. No one laughed. No one whispered. Even he sat motionless, staring straight ahead, realizing too late that this time, there was no joke to hide behind. He finally tried to speak, clearing his throat as if confidence alone could fix everything. His words came out rushed, defensive, jumping from excuse to excuse. But each explanation was met with another document slid across the table, another detail that didn't match his story. I watched his posture change, shoulders sinking, hands tightening together. The charm that once controlled the room vanished, replaced by panic he couldn't hide. In that moment, it was clear to everyone, the image he built so carefully was falling apart right in front of us. HR stood up and calmly stated the decision. There was no anger in their voice, just finality. He looked around as if someone might step in, laugh it off, or defend him, but no one moved. A security representative appeared at the door, quiet and professional. He gathered his things in silence, the same hands that once waved confidently now trembling slightly. As he walked out, the room avoided his eyes. The person who had humiliated me in front of everyone left without applause, without laughter, and without the power he thought he owned. After the meeting ended, my phone began to buzz again, but this time, the tone was different. Messages came in slowly at first, then all at once. Coworkers apologized for laughing, for staying silent, for not stepping in when it mattered. Some thanked me for having the courage to do what they couldn't. In the hallway, people met my eyes and nodded with respect instead of pity. I didn't feel proud or vengeful, just calm. The weight I'd been carrying for weeks finally lifted, replaced by a quiet sense of validation. When I finally left the building, the city felt different, lighter somehow. The same streets, the same noise, but I walked through it with my head held high. I hadn't raised my voice or embarrassed anyone publicly. I hadn't become what hurt me. I had trusted patience and truth, and they did the work for me. As the elevator doors closed behind me, I realized something important. Real revenge isn't loud or dramatic. It's silent, precise, and powerful enough to change everything, without you saying a single word. I stepped outside into the cool evening air, taking a deep breath as the doors closed behind me. The noise of traffic and city life continued like nothing had happened, yet everything inside me had changed. I felt steady, grounded, and free from the shame that once followed me. I didn't need applause or recognition, justice had spoken loud enough. As I walked away, I understood that the strongest response to humiliation isn't anger or revenge fueled by rage. It's self-control, truth, and the courage to let consequences unfold naturally. And that quiet ending shocked everyone far more than any public confrontation ever could.